Welcome to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. Today we have Brian Stanton, recent graduate of the college. How are you?
Good.
Welcome to the show.
So
what are we doing today, Brian?
We make breads today.
Breads?
Yeah.
So that's going to take a little bit to get started at.
Right, so we're going to start it right away.
Okay.
So we have a big bowl here.
Yeah.
We have active yeast. We have sugar to feed our yeast.
Okay.
We have lukewarm water here.
Yeah.
We use lukewarm because it activates yeast quickly.
Okay.
And if you use hot water, it'll kill the yeast. And cold water will make it lie dormant and will not rise at all.
So it has to be body temperature?
Yes, lukewarm, room temperature.
And then once we get it mixed up, stir it together? And
Stir it together to agitate the yeast a little bit so it'll start fermenting faster.
And about what's your ratio to measurements for?
I got 2 cups of water in here. I got 1 tablespoon of sugar and 1 tablespoon of yeast.
So equal amounts of sugar and yeast and 2 cups of water.
Right.
Okay. So mix it up and let that sit in a warm spot. And
Right.
then in about 10 minutes,
You'll have this frothy mess here.
should look like that. Excellent. So what gets you into making breads?
It's cost to feed, like the cost efficiency is really good for when you want to feed your family.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do here is we just mix this together. It's kind of therapeutic sometimes.
Okay.
A little bit of oil. Oil will also keep the bread a little more moist and preserve its quality.
So just
About 3 to 4 tablespoons.
of oil in there?
Yep.
Okay.
And we just start mixing this together.
And you can do this by hand or you can do this in a mixer?
In a mixer. So right now I have roughly 5.5 cups of flour in here. Slowly working it in so that way we're not making a mess all over the place.
Right. And you're just
And
using
then
a wooden
I've
spoon?
reserved about a cup just for the kneading process because sometimes it'll start sticking to the cutting board
Okay.
and that's never fun.
And what's the purpose of the kneading?
The kneading is to develop gluten bonds between the starch here and that way when we go to proof, it holds its shape.
Right. And what we call proofing is?
Proofing is letting the dough ferment and develop flavor and it also relaxes the gluten strands so when you go to work with it again, it becomes more easy to work with.
Okay.
So now that I've got a basic dough started here, I'm going to
So
lightly
once it starts to come together with the spoon, then you can take it out on the bowl and start working it.
on a floured cutting board surface. A little bit extras. And just slowly start kneading it. Going from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock.
So you keep turning it half turns and then
Yep.
kneading it in?
Being gentle the whole time.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll start coming together and all this dry stuff will get picked up and the dough will become really soft.
And about how long do you need this for? Is there a certain texture you're looking for?
You're looking for about 300 turns actually.
300 turns?
Yeah.
So you're counting?
Not counting. I'm just
No.
going to go for about 4 or 5 minutes and I can
Okay.
do about 300 turns.
Okay. And and how do you know if you got to add more flour or it should come together, or if it's too dry?
If it's too dry, it won't fold together.
Yep.
And if it's too wet, it's just a nightmare to work with.
Okay.
So that's your first signs usually.
Yeah.
This one here is coming together quite nicely. We're trying to keep letting it go until it gets a little bit sticky. And once it's sticky, we're going to throw it in an oiled bowl to double in size for about 45 minutes.
So oiled bowl just greased on the outside, not heavily oiled?
Right. That's where your dough doesn't stick to the side of the bowl.
Okay. And what about forming a crust on the outside as it's proofing?
We'll usually put a piece of plastic wrap or a wet cloth over top.
Okay. So what gets you into doing breads? Because I've known you for quite a while, and breads seems to be your kind of thing. You worked in a couple of restaurants? Or?
One of the chefs at the culinary, Andrew Morrison, showed me how to make bread once, and I've sort of fell in love with it ever since, because it's such a versatile unit to make anything out of, just from simple dinner rolls to loaves of bread, baguettes. You can also make strombolis.
And you can use the same basic bread recipe for all the above.
That's right, and if you want to alter it a little bit, I mean, I know with making bagels, you want to have a tougher dough with more gluten, so you can either add more flour or knead it a little bit longer. And then there's things like a focaccia, which is a bit of a looser dough that you have lots of oil in, and that is less flour as well.
Okay, so it's just a measurement of how much flour you add, but does your yeast and salt or yeast and sugar ratios
Depending on the
change much?
size of the batch you want to make, like this here's just a 2.5 pound ball.
Yeah.
So if I was going to make a 10 pound batch, I'd times my recipe up by 10.
By 10.
And I'd use 10 tablespoons of yeast instead.
Okay. So when did you graduate the Culinary Institute?
I graduated in 2011, and I've been working in various restaurants across town. The last one I was working at was the Orange Lunchbox, where we were featured on You've Got to Eat Here. So it was a really cool experience to get involved with that. We were also featured on Clara Hughes' Ride Across Canada for Mental Health Awareness.
Awesome.
So we cooked her some lunch out of the food trailer during Burger Love.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. She's a great person to meet, and it was an awesome experience.
Okay.
So from there, I've just met up with you guys at the culinary and sort of been relaxing there. So as you see, our dough's nice ball shape.
Yep.
stiff though, so you can't do much with it. When you try to roll it out, it's just going to rip the gluten, as you can see it does now.
Right.
So what we're going to do...
So you want to put that aside and just let it rest and relax, and let the gluten
So we're gonna
strands
put it in
kind of
a bowl.
relax a little bit.
A little bit of oil.
So just a thin film. So what are some of the things that we're going to do with the bread today?
Today we're going to take our dough. The best thing is I find there's nothing better than fresh bread. So we're going to make a fresh bread today,
Yeah.
artisan style, in a pan, and we're going to score the top with flour, and it's going to be beautiful.
And we're using basically the same bread recipe for all the recipes
Right,
today.
but I don't want to use this entire batch because this is going to be a loaf like that if we do.
Right.
So I'm going to cut half of it off, reserve 2 other pieces for 2 other things we're going to try later, which is a calzone. Just a simple Canadian calzone, and then we're going to do a apple walnut stromboli with the caramel sauce.
Stromboli sounds great.
All right.
And we're going to do just the natural bread. Okay, so we cover that in oil. We let it rest and relax for
Double in size. About
45 minutes?
Yep.
Something like that. So Caitlin is giving us a hand today. Caitlin Brenton's a graduate of Culinary Institute as well. And she's going to give us a piece of bread that we have done.
So this here's doubled in size. You can see it's very gentle.
Yeah. So
If
it's
we-
not nearly as firm as the one we just passed out.
No. Now you can either punch this down again and let it proof again, or you
Yeah.
can bake it just as is. Because the idea behind proofing is it lets the gluten stretch
Right.
and it won't rupture at the side.
Okay.
So-
So is there a benefit to letting it proof the second time?
Yeah, it'll actually make your loaf a bit nicer. It'll be a little more airy,
A little more even?
a little more even, a little more consistent. You won't have a massive piece of dough come out the side that looks undercooked.
Okay.
So we're just going to oil this pan lightly.
So this is the artisan bread that we're going to do now.
This is an artisan style bread. And then
Which
from
is very
this,
very traditional, very very rustic cooking on a pizza stone or in a wood-fired oven or something like that.
right, and then something simple as this here, you can easily just score the top with a
Okay.
knife. Okay, will you grab me a knife, please? I'm going to take a little bit of flour, so when you score it, they separate and make a nice garnish. Thank you.
And because that's already proof, that's oven ready right now.
It's oven ready. So we're going to fire this in the oven, 350 degrees for 25 to 35 minutes.
350 degrees?
Yep.
Okay. So when we come back, we're going to let that bake off. When we come back, we're going to do calzone and
Apple walnut stromboli.
apple walnut stromboli. Don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson with Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. We have graduate student Brian Stanton with us today doing artisan bread. So we've made a bread dough and we're showing different varieties of how the bread, what we can do with the simple recipe of the basic
Right.
bread dough. We have our artisan bread in the oven.
Right?
And what are we doing next?
Well, what I like to find is that whenever I make dough at home, I make a little extra because dough gets better with time.
Mhm.
You can leave a bag of dough in your fridge up to almost 14 days before it starts getting really stinky and
You
sour
just
on
need to
you.
have it just to
in a
stinky and sour,
container,
like a
or-
sourdough?
Yeah, in a container or wrapped up really well, tied in a bag. And one of the best things about leftover dough is you can do so much with it. So
Okay.
today we're gonna start with a calzone.
Okay.
Caitlin, would you bring me my calzone dough, please?
So what goes in the calzone?
So anything goes in the calzone. This is the greatest thing ever. You can clean out your entire fridge just by making a calzone.
Nice.
So we're gonna start off with a little bit of semolina flour down, so it slides
Okay.
off really nice. Voila. So we're gonna start by cooking our bacon, which is already pre-cooked just because we don't have quite enough time to cook it all the way on the show here.
Okay.
And we're gonna use mushrooms and onions as well. And this is referred to as a Canadian style, because we love our mushrooms, onions, and bacon over here in Canada.
Right.
So we're gonna sauce our
So
pizza.
bacon, so we'd saute the bacon to make bacon bits, and then we could just do the onions and mushrooms in that bacon fat all together.
That's right.
Okay, and what do you got for tomato sauce?
So
you
this
got
here
on
is
the
just
go there?
a simple pasta sauce that you can find in your cupboard, left over from the night before, or even buy a can of pizza sauce will work.
Mhm.
So I'm going to cover that 3/4 of the way.
So you're not covering the whole thing with the sauce, just
No.
just half of it.
It gets a little messy when you do that.
Okay.
So we'll throw down a little layer of cheese. And
What kind of cheese?
So what we have here is a Douanier and a sheep's milk Gouda.
Okay.
And these are just some fancy cheeses I found around work that I figured I'd use for this. You can use mozzarella, cheddar, Gouda,
Just little scraps
Verdi,
of whatever you might have in the
Parmesan,
in
whatever
the
you have
refrigerator.
ready.
Okay. And do we want any colorization on our mushrooms?
No, we're
and
just
onions?
basically looking to cook them gently, just so they break down a little bit and they're not super crunchy.
Okay.
We don't want the mushrooms overcooked.
And then what about, so this is We're going to wait for these to cook a little bit. So what are we doing for our stromboli?
So for our stromboli, we have an apple walnut filling for it.
Okay.
So Caitlin, I'll get you to pass me my stromboli.
We'll come back to the calzone once the onions are done there in a second.
Right. So, just regular dough, I've got it rolled out in a rectangle. We're going to roll it lengthwise. So in this pan here, we're going to start off with a little bit of butter to saute our apples.
Okay. And the apples have been soaking in water?
Yes, it's acidulated water. It's got lemon juice in it because if you don't, your apples will start to turn brown.
Okay. So we just want to strain off that and then
Right into the pan.
a little bit of brown butter won't hurt.
More flavor, chef. So we're going to sprinkle the sugar in and a little bit of cinnamon.
Just the white sugar?
Yeah. There's about a quarter cup there to 2 apples.
Okay. We can add more later if we want some cinnamon.
Yep. And there's about 2 teaspoons there.
Okay.
Just going to saute that together.
So is this one of those things that you can put just about any ingredient you want in your
Yeah.
stromboli or
so
whatever
you
you
can do
want?
sweet or savory. So today we're actually doing a sweet stromboli. It's dessert style. We're going to serve it with a caramel sauce.
Okay.
How are our onions and mushrooms looking, chef?
Well, they're starting to get translucent. You just want to soften them up a little bit.
Yep.
Just let them go for another minute or two. So this is stromboli is going to be a little bit of a dessert style today.
Right,
Is that
it's gonna be
the-
very
is that the
sweet.
plan?
Yep. So these apples here, we're just looking to put a little bit of color on them and soften up a little bit so when you're biting into the stromboli, it's not actually a raw apple.
Okay.
Now at this point, we can add a little bit of lemon juice.
Just a squeeze of fresh lemon.
Yep. Just watch for seeds.
Just makes it authentic.
Yes. Makes it authentic. Perfect.
You want your onions to go much more than
No,
that?
they're
or-
pretty much perfect, chef, so we'll pull that off the heat for right now.
Okay.
Once this lemon juice reduces down just a little bit, we'll line our stromboli and roll it up. So we're also going to put brie cheese in our stromboli today. It's one of those cheeses that's a little neutral. It works both in savory and sweet dishes.
Mm-hmm.
So now that our apple mixture is good to go, we're just going to line it down our dough. Spread it out. Want to leave room on the edges to seal it. Then we're just going to start throwing down sliced brie.
So again, you could use any type of cheese for this.
Yep. With apples, I'd normally use like an old cheddar. Really
Okay.
nice. So we'll load it up with walnuts for crunch.
And did you toast these or flavor these in
These
any
are
way?
toasted. Just gently toasted. Then we start rolling.
So you're trying to seal the ends, or you're trying to?
I leave the
just
ends
like a
wide
cinnamon
open.
roll, like it's just like a pinwheel kind of action you're going to
Exactly. So at this point here too, if you wanted to, you could cut this into individual portions and have like a stromboli kind of apple cinnamon roll.
Okay.
So we're going to make sure this is cooked on the seam, so when it cooks, it does not explode on us.
So once you get this assembled, what's the status? Does it need to go directly in the oven, or do you
Right
need
into
to,
the oven.
Right into the oven,
I'm also going to score the top a little bit so it doesn't explode on us.
and that will help the breads expand as it bakes.
Right. Now you can also egg wash and dust it with sugar if you'd like, but that's a little unnecessary for today. We're just going to fire it right in the oven just like this.
Just like that. At what temperature in oven?
350 degree oven for about 20 minutes.
350 degrees for about 20 minutes.
Yeah. So now back to our calzone. We've got our sauce, our 2 different kinds of cheeses. Now we're just going to add the bacon to it.
We're right on the cheese.
Right on the cheese. Every last drop of bacon, chef.
Don't waste any bacon.
No bacon. Shall be wasted today, chef. All right, so then we're going to fold this over. If you're feeling adventurous, you can pinch it off right there and make a stuffed crust with cheese. But today I'm just going to roll it into itself.
So it's like a closed-in pizza.
Yeah, essentially it's a giant pizza pocket. In the culinary world, we call it calzone.
And what's the secret behind this? You're gonna bake this at again 350 degrees, and this is the same bread dough we made earlier.
It's the same bread dough. We're going to bake it at 350 degrees, kind of low and slow. Normally when you do pizza, you want to do it a little bit higher so it gets really crispy. But there's a lot more to cook here. Just going to score the top a little bit so the air can escape. And drizzle a little bit of olive oil for a little extra color.
Beauty. Looks great. Lots of nice flavors going on in there too.
And then from here, you can either take you can do fresh herbs on top, more cheese, salt, pepper. But we're going to leave it plain today.
Okay. And again, right into the oven
Right into the oven.
350 degrees.
Yep.
And we're going to let those bake in the oven, 350 for about 20 minutes. So don't go away. We'll be right back. And we're going to make a caramel sauce to go with the stromboli. So don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson at the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. Guest chef today, Brian Stanton, recent graduate. So today we're doing bread.
Right.
We have our artisan bread out of the oven.
So this is just come out of the oven.
Beautiful,
Nice
look
and
at
hot
that.
still. Ooh.
So all our recipes today featured the basic bread dough that we made this with.
Right. So we're just gonna slice this.
So how do you get a nice crisp crust on the outside of your bread? Is there a secret to that, Brian? Or
Sometimes you gotta bake it longer, and sometimes you gotta sort of steam inject it. You can take a hot pan, put them in the oven, and just drizzle some water in it, and it'll create steam. And the steam will keep the crust of the bread moister longer, so it gets harder. So eventually, what happens is it just gets really crispy.
And we didn't do that for this because we were just going for the old-fashioned version, right?
That's
we
right.
Just kind of wanted to. So this is a natural crust without the steam action. But if you wanted a crispier bread,
You can add steam or
Add
just leave it
steam
in
to
just
it.
a little bit longer too.
okay. So
Yeah.
we got that done. We have our.
There's
So
the
that's
bread,
beautiful.
And we're gonna serve it with a little bit of balsamic and olive oil.
Okay.
So, over here we have olive oil, just a little bit of balsamic. Now they say the reason they put balsamic and olive oil is because it hides if the oil is rancid, it'll hide the smell and the flavor of it.
Oh.
So yeah. All right, here's our loaf of bread. Moving on to our calzone next.
Okay. So we got to get a sauce going here too for the.
Right, so in our sauce,
Stromboli, right?
we have butter
Okay.
and brown sugar,
So a cup of each.
equal parts.
Brown sugar, and we're just going to melt these together and let them reduce.
Right, with a bit of vanilla, it's about 1 tablespoon.
Okay.
And as that starts melting, we'll add the cream in
Okay.
to bind it.
Right on. So we'll just get that going while we're cutting everything else.
So in the oven we go for our stromboli.
So these have been baking for about 20 minutes.
In a 350 degree oven.
Mm-hmm. Calzone looks awesome.
And here's our magic shot right here.
Oh, way bigger crust. And this is the same bread dough as we made our loaf of bread with. Beautiful. You cut this with a pizza wheel or whatever you had at home.
I personally like to use a nice sharp chef's knife.
Yeah.
I find I struggle with the pizza wheel a little bit.
Okay, very good.
Yep. Okay, so we have just more tomato sauce and a black garlic donair sauce.
Black garlic donair sauce. Was that
Right.
something you made at home and yourself?
No, the black garlic is produced here on PEI by Eureka Garlic.
Okay.
It's a low and slow cooking process of fermenting garlic.
Mm-hmm.
Here he does it in a refrigerator. I'm not quite sure how he does this, but he does.
Okay.
On to our last recipe here. We have our lovely apple walnut stromboli with brie cheese.
So we did that on parchment paper to make it a little bit easier for cleanup.
Right. So that comes off onto our cutting board.
So is there something you're testing when you're doing these in the oven for the bread? You tap them
Yeah,
or-
sometimes
or
if you tap them and they sound hollow, it's your first sign that it's done.
that it's done.
So yeah, now we slice our stromboli.
It's almost like a strudel with phyllo.
Right. And with the stromboli, once again, you can go either savory or sweet, any kind of flavor combination you really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the flavors work well together.
Smells awesome.
Thank you, chef. It's a little bit hot because it's fresh out of the oven. If you cool it down, you won't burn your fingers like I am right now slicing it. One might
So
call
should it rest when it comes out of the oven?
It would
or
be
should
preferred to
you-
rest it for 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
That way things will cool down a little bit and they won't be so eager to spew at the sides.
Okay. Keep your fingers back and make sure they're not in the way of your knife whenever you're cooking.
All right, so there is our stromboli.
All right.
Would you pass me that plate over there, chef?
Yep.
So we just want to lay it out so you can see the inside.
So this is bread you have after you make your dough and you've got extra left over, and this is something you can do with your bread that's been in the fridge for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Couple of days.
No waste, right?
Yeah.
So what we want here is...
And can you freeze the bread dough as well?
You sure
In
can.
bags?
Like I said before, freezing the dough, the yeast will only make it go dormant.
Mhm.
It has a big old nap, and then it comes out ready to play again once it reaches room temperature.
Awesome. So we have calzone, we have the stromboli, we have our sauce, and we have our fresh baked bread.
All right, so how's our sauce looking, Chef? Is it ready for some cream?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So we're going to add our cream and continue to reduce for another minute or so. That way it builds body and richness.
Okay. So we want to reduce, so this is all, and just a teaspoon of vanilla in there.
Yeah, just for a little bit of flavor. And you can also add rum, whiskey, any of your favorite kind of liquors to this to jazz it up a little bit, make it a little fancier.
Okay. So these are the types of things that you do at home all the time?
Yeah. I like to serve family style. Creates less dishes for us.
Right.
At the end of the night, sometimes it's nice to grab a plate. The big thing, set up at the table, everybody serves themselves, they get what they want. There's no confusion, no fighting.
Right. And we have some fresh herbs here too. Are we utilizing those?
So the fresh herbs here is going to be a garnish for our calzone.
Just put those over there for you.
Now with the calzone, before it goes in the oven, like I said before, you can garnish it with almost anything on top of the crust for extra flavor.
Yep.
At home, I like to use dried herbs like oregano, basil, thyme, a little garlic powder, a little bit of onion salt.
Just on top.
Just on
and
top.
When it's hot like that, the basil doesn't cook, and you kind of get that nice.
It gets very aromatic. Hit it with a little bit of fresh cracked pepper.
Now, would you put any special herbs on this? Any mint or anything on this?
I like to leave that alone. If there's any, if you want to reserve any walnuts, that'd be perfect.
Okay.
And also with this in here, where it does have the brie cheese in there, I might actually throw a little bit of this thyme down for a garnish, because I think that would be really nice.
Okay. I think our sauce is
Looking good, Chef?
looking good there. Yeah.
Just a little grate of fresh Parmesan here. Everybody loves fresh Parmesan. So our sauce here. Get my golden trusty spoon out.
I was wondering what that golden spoon was all about.
Not just a Christmas tree. All right, so I'm gonna start spooning over, getting it everywhere, because this sauce is awesome. And it's really important that you don't taste the sauce while it's still bubbling, or else you'll burn your tongue.
Because it's sugar, right?
It's sugar.
It's a good point.
Sugar, hot sugar is
You might want your taste buds for dinner, not for. And then the extra you can put on the dish, and everybody can dip as they wish.
Yeah, so the people that are caramel junkies can get right into that.
Fantastic.
All right, so we'll put a couple of these sprigs of thyme on there just for a little bit of color, make it look nice, maybe pop up on the plate.
That's awesome. So what to do with bread?
It's unlimited, but you can do it with bread. Perfect.
Right on. And all from a simple bread dough recipe.
All from one simple bread dough recipe.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for being on the show today. Really appreciate your efforts.
Thanks for having us. It's been a great time.
No problem. And thank you for joining us. Check out the recipes on our website, kitchenuncovered.com. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson, Culinary Institute, signing off. Catch you next time.